Good evening everybody, and welcome to a bit of a hobby update on my British Black Powder Force. So here we have the 71st Highland Regiment, which, as you can tell, I put the covered shakos on the majority of them, not necessarily the Light Company or the Grenadiers, but it's a light infantry regiment anyway. So the reason I've done that is so that I don't have to worry about trying to paint tartan, because don't really fancy painting tartan on a shako. Fairly simple paint scheme on this, nothing too major, nothing too drastic. It's just going to be that's for the red for the tunics. That's currently the London Grey that I'm putting on. So as you see, just putting on some on the trousers, and obviously the overcoat there, and then just going through, and then obviously we've got that US Gators brown from Warlord, which will obviously do the collars and cuffs, and then pick the white up as and when we do that. So, interesting thing for you. Most people would say paint the miniatures before you stick them to the base, and to a certain extent that's quite accurate, quite right. You should always paint the miniatures 9 times out of 10 before you put them on the base. The reason I put these on the base is I've actually found it relatively easy to paint them on the base, and then I can paint one base at a time, not feeling overloaded, and don't suffer from painting fatigue, simply because you're only painting 4 miniatures at a time. Now yes, you could do that without sticking to the base, but this way I know once this command base is painted, that's the command base painted. I don't have to worry too much about it. It's done, dusted, no problem. And it'll be the same for the other companies when I come to paint them. I'll just do one at a time. Just make it a bit easier, because then you can just sit down and just go, right, tonight I'm just going to paint one base. Tomorrow night I'll just paint another base, and then another base, and another base. Within a week you've got your battalion painted. Obviously for the main base colours I'm using zero brush to get them on, and then I will come in when it comes up to doing the finer details, things like the cross belts and piping and so on. I will come in with a smaller brush to do them. So as you can see, it's a very simple one. Nice simple paint scheme, nothing too drastic. What some people will do, and I have seen, is some people will go all out on the miniatures, on every single one, yes, it looks good having every single one painted nicely to a high standard, where you're getting all the eyes and all the details, and doing washes and highlights and dry brushes, but the question you have to ask yourself is, do you like the painting, or do you like the playing, or do you like both? There's some people out there that like just the painting, and which is okay. I mean, they do some fantastic paint jobs. I know mine's not necessarily the best paint job in the world. I'll freely admit I'm not the world's best painter, but on the flip side, I'm not the world's worst painter either. I have seen some really shocking paint jobs out there from so-called professionals who will come in and just throw literally throw paint at miniatures. At least it looks like they're throwing paint at miniatures. But then I've seen some other people who aren't necessarily professionals, and at shows normally have some cracking miniatures. I say it's normally at the shows which you see them. It's quite nice to see go to a show every now and then, because it gives you an idea as to maybe different games you'd like to play, different eras you'd like to pick up. I mean, until a couple of years ago, I tried Napoleonics when I was younger, but the problem was, at the time I was more interested in playing than painting, and I didn't like the idea of sitting down having to paint all those miniatures just to make one battalion. To me it seemed like a lot. It seemed like a waste of time. Now though, it's quite therapeutic, I think. Sitting down, painting one base at a time, going off and doing it. It is actually quite nice. Apologies if you can hear mumbling in the background, that's my stepson. He's playing a computer game with his friends online. Apologies for that if you can hear that. If you can't, don't worry about it. You can't hear it, it's fine. As I say, it's an interesting thing when you're doing this, because it does become quite therapeutic to paint the miniatures and going over them and just getting all the fine detail bits and picking up all the bits you missed. I mean, as I say, it's when I was younger, just starting out, the idea of Napoleonics, I think the reason why it scared me, well, not so much scared me, but didn't interest me at the time, was because it was the thought of sitting down painting all those miniatures for a game. Just wasn't the best idea in the world to me. I just wanted to play. So I went down the standard route, playing a fantasy sci-fi game, which didn't work out too well in the end, simply because I got bored of it. When they started mucking around changing rules, I got bored of it. Whereas now I'll quite happily sit down and have an evening time, just sit down and just play and chill and paint, really. So how did I get into historical wargaming? Now that's a question. Really, it was through bolt action. Actually, I was a bit stuck. As I say, I've been playing a different game, different style of game, and got bored with it. Going to the local shop, and it was actually that I got fed up with. Excuse me. It was actually that I got a bit fed up with. Going to the local shop and then being told, oh yes, you can't use those miniatures, they're not painted well enough, and they'd be like, well, what do you mean they're not painted well enough? And it was like, oh well, you need at least 3 separate colours on them, and it's like, well, they've got 3 colours on them, they're they're painted, then it's like, no, they're not painted well enough, it's not to a high enough standard, this and the other. And it's like, well, it's a game. What more do you want? And it's like, oh well, you'll have to put some wash over the top, or you'll have to do this and this and this and this and this. And it's like, well, if you're not going to let me use a miniature because it's not painted to what you deem as a high enough standard, I'm just not going to bother playing. And that is what kind of spoiled it for me, really, was. And I won't say where this shop was, but it wasn't far away from where I used to live. It was about half-hour train ride, 45-minute drive from where I used to live. And it was the manager of the shop that I didn't get on with, which kind of put me off the game because, well, there was no local gaming club, nothing around, so I had a quick look around, and I found, I can't remember who it was now, but I found this person on YouTube doing a battle report for Bolt Action. And so I saw that and I thought, ooh, that looks quite good. So I ordered the starter set, and I just started putting it together, building the armies, putting everything together, and well, I didn't actually get a chance to play it for quite a few years actually, simply because, again, I had no one to play against. I mean, World War II has always interested me. Yes, it did. It always interested me. So I thought, well, what the heck, may as well. And then the question has to be, how did I get into Napoleonics? Well, I got into Napoleonics because something that I've kind of always been interested in. Just, I never really fancied sitting down painting all the miniatures at the time. However, now it's kind of, I can quite happily sit down and knock out a company in a night, or one miniature in a night. It's quite relaxing to do. Or even if it's just sort of assemble and paint one. It's quite relaxing to do that, I find. And just sit here, chill out, zone out, and not have to worry about a thing. And yeah, I don't paint to a highly detailed standard. Well, it's not what I deem as a highly detailed standard. I don't do faces, I don't do eyes. Can't do eyes, never been able to do eyes. Eyes are one of those things which you can either do them or you can't. And I can't. And I know I can't. Because I know I can't, I don't try. I mean, I have got quite a varied range when it comes to wargaming, but I mean, the thing is with historical wargaming, so my other half would tell me that all you're doing is just a reenactment with little plastic men, and it's like, well, not really. Sometimes, yes, it's a reenactment. Sometimes it's actually a completely different change of pace and actually changes the whole outcome of an entire war or battle or something like that. Sometimes it's just for fun. So normally I just play just for fun. So the historical side of it is actually quite interesting, especially reading up on some of the histories about some of the units and some of the armies and learning some bits and pieces. It's like, and with my British Airborne, World War II British Airborne that I've got. They're obviously some of the first troops that were in during D-Day, which is sort of the area that I've gone for, is Normandy. And with them being some of the first ones in, it's rather interesting reading up some of the history, some of the stories on them. So they didn't necessarily all land together. Obviously Pegasus Bridge is quite a famous bit, but that was obviously done with gliders, not paratroopers. And what most people don't realise is paratroopers were a new thing back at that time, completely new. And yeah, so sometimes it's nice just sit down and read up about these things. What you will note is, obviously, whilst I'm painting these, you will note I'm not sticking 100% to the historically accurate colours for the miniatures. I'm just going roughly, just to make it look nice. So I know it's not necessarily 100% accurate, but as long as it looks good from 3 feet away, and it's about the impact with Napoleonics, I think it's you've got to go for the impact of the rank and file. So all those red coats stood next to each other, shoulder to shoulder. I mean, if you saw my video the other week that I loaded up, well, the other day really that I loaded up, you would have seen my British force. With just obviously these and the brigade commander left to paint, and then that's the brigade done. And you would have noted that, yeah, none of them were technically 100% accurate, but they had the right collars and cuffs for the flags. So just in case you're wondering where I get my flags, sometimes I print them off myself. Sometimes I buy them. So the flags for the 71st I couldn't actually find a copy of, but I've managed to order some from Flags of War. So yeah, so obviously once I've got this command base done, then those flags will be going on. So where was I? Historical wargaming. How did I get into it? Well, as I said, got into it through bolt action. I do now have quite varied range. I say varied range. To be honest, most of it is World War II. In fact, nearly all of it is World War II, all apart from my black powder stuff, which is Napoleonic. But I am hoping to, at some point soon, venture into the realms of the American War of 1812. I do also have Blood and Plunder, Rise of the Black, which is obviously 18th century. Yes, that's right. Sorry, I had to think then. I had to think if I got my centuries already around, but yes, it is 18th century. Because obviously Napoleonic is early 19th century. And then obviously World War II is 20th century. So I'm slowly but surely working my way back to ancient. Not sure if I'd ever get to ancient mind, but very, very slowly I'm working my way back there. Now, the thing is, I'm not entirely sure I'd want to go all the way to ancient. I may find it too... Well, I'm not sure how I feel about ancient, to be honest. I honestly couldn't tell you how I feel about the ancients. It is one of those things where I never thought I'd like Napoleonics, I used to find them a bit dull and boring. But I think that's just because I'd had a bad experience when I was younger with Napoleonics. Went on a wargaming holiday and to a place where obviously you played war games whilst on holiday. I was like there for a whole week playing a Napoleonic Peninsula campaign, and there's always the one guy, you know that guy, it's always one guy who has to nitpick at the rules. Now, bearing in mind I wasn't that old at the time, quite young, fairly new to wargaming as such, just there to have a bit of fun, and then this one guy always has to nitpick the rules. Can't just accept the fact that you're young, you're going to make mistakes, you don't know the rules, you've never played this rule set before in your life. No, as far as this guy was concerned, everybody had to be an expert in the rules. If you weren't an expert, you weren't worth playing. And that was not an enjoyable experience. So that kind of put me off him a little bit, to be honest with you. How did I get back into it? Well, as I said, that was through bolt action. So to all of you that sort of play at a club level, if you have that one guy, or if you are that one guy, don't be that one guy, please, because you will put people off. And although the hobby is seen as middle-aged men playing with little plastic men, I personally don't think that it's that anymore. I mean, obviously there's celebrity endorsements with Superman, dare I say, to the point that my other half even knows who he is. But obviously he doesn't play historical. He is solely one Games Workshop. He just does not do historical at all. I should have dropped my brush off a bit more than doing that, but so it's a bit messy that. I'm going to have to tidy that bit up a bit once it's dry. Yeah, so there is obviously a bit more to it now. I mean, Robin Williams used to play Warhammer, Warhammer 40k. Yeah, so I've completely rambled on now for too long, I think. So I will bid you good night, and I will carry on and see if I can get this command base done. And then hopefully, fairly soon, I will have a bit more of an update for you. So, for now, I will bid you adieu. Happy gaming, everybody. And if you haven't already, I'm going to do the usual thing and just say like and subscribe. Will all come in handy. And well, if you could, maybe share the channel. So, thank you very much, and good night.